who's doing the intro? You or me? आप कर लो.
You.
Last time मैंने किया था.
जादू मंतर जादू मंतर जादू मंतर You are going into the future.
You talking to me?
Ain't always me being seen clothing.
என் பேர் மாணிக்கம். எனக்கு இன்னொரு பேர் இருக்கு.
Talking to me?
Queen is dead.
Hello. Welcome to the Queen is Dead podcast. Dhruv, if you are listening, I hope I said the hello like in your cadence. You know. Anyway, as you can understand, I am not Dhruv, and I currently have Varun Bhake with me because we both are the only two people of this entire gang who has actually finished watching Black Warrant.
Who has
Nobody,
actually probably started watching Black Warrant even.
yeah, who actually started watching Black Warrant.
Yeah.
Because apparently everybody else in that gang either has an aversion to TV shows या ज़्यादा time नहीं है, which is ludicrous if anybody knows me. कि ज़्यादा time नहीं है is not a thing I believe in.
ध्रुव के
कहीं ना
पास तो
कहीं
टाइम ही टाइम है.
मिल जाता है time. So
This is basically a Dhruv slander episode
yeah, fully.
with a bit of Black Warrant in it.
Sunil Gupta. Do you know who I am?
तिहाड़ में ऐसी पता नहीं कितनी कहानियां हैं, ना तो कोई कहता है और ना कोई सुनने को तैयार है। मैं सबको बोल दूंगा तुझे खुली छूट है, मगर मेरा स्टाफ सुरक्षित रहना चाहिए।
आपको जैसे आपके स्टाफ की फिक्र है, वैसे मुझे मेरे लड़कों की। उन्हें मुझे भी तो दिखाना पड़ेगा तिहाड़ जेल में असली राज किसका है। अब तो खून बहेगा तो मत सा। जो करना होगा मिलजुल के करना होगा भाई। मेरे तरीके से करेंगे नहीं, तीनों मिलके करेंगे।
But for the uninitiated, Black Warrant is the new show streaming on Netflix, created by Vikramaditya Motwane and Satyanshu Singh, based on the book Black Warrant by Sunil Gupta and Sunetra Chaudhary, published by Roli.
Hmm.
And it is a very interesting look at jailbreak, in that last time when we spoke about jailbreak and life in jail, we were with people on the other side of the bars in Jigra
Jigra.
by Vasan Bala.
Vasan Bala, yes.
How's
But
it
that's
going,
the
Dhruv?
thing, na. Every time we talk about jails, it's always about getting these people out of
Getting
jail.
people out of jail. Absolutely.
It was never about the entire process and
Hmm.
prisoner and prisoner
Authority is
to
always
authority.
antagonist.
Yes, exactly. So it's
Authority is
not
never the
focusing
good
on
part
the
of it.
authority and their failures or their successes in actually looking
Yeah.
after the prisoners or the entire failing of the administration. So
Yep.
it's an interesting subject to tackle in the first place.
Definitely. Uh, so yeah, that's precisely what Black Warrant does. It follows a young boy slash man. It is the boy man transformation, literally, in over the course
By
of
coming
7
of
episodes.
by that he means coming of age.
Coming of age in I don't even know whether to call it that, because he's very cognizant of the fact that he has responsibilities towards his family and stuff like that.
Mhm.
So in that sense, he's very much a grown up, but he's
I
also
think it's a
too
coming of age
idealistic.
towards cynicism. It's basically coming
Ha,
towards cynicism in a way.
or coming towards realism. I wouldn't say he'll ever be a cynic in the way some of the others are,
Mm.
but he'll definitely not be as idealistic as he was when he started out.
Yeah.
This is, of course, the central character, Sunil Gupta, played by Zahan Kapoor. I hope I'm
Mm.
pronouncing his name right.
Yeah.
Uh, Grandson of Shashi Kapoor. Looks a
Grandson
fair
Shashi.
bit like him,
Looks a
actually.
fair bit like him. Yeah. Even my
Uh,
mom was like, he looks a fair bit like young Shashi Kapoor. I'm like, yep, he does.
Also, the timelines intersect. Like in the film's setting, in the
Hmm.
show's setting, is basically when Shashi Kapoor
एक
was
सेकंड
doing. हाँ,
एक सेकंड
आपके
व्हाट
यहाँ पे
हैपेंड
ब्लैक आउट हो चुका है while
हाँ
discussing
ब्लैक
Black
आउट हो
Warrant.
चुका है एक सेकंड करंट चला गया एक सेकंड
तिहाड़ में जब ये होता है तब जेल ब्रेक हो जाता है.
जेल ब्रेक हो जाता है, यस.
Yeah. So Zahan Kapoor basically looks like or could interact with Shashi Kapoor's movies almost, which is something I'm glad the show doesn't do. Like at no point does he say, "Arey, my favorite movie is
And that
uh,
would have been too much winky for its own
yeah,
taste.
yeah,
Like,
yeah."
yeah,
It would
yeah.
have been too Vasan Bala in a way.
Yes, exactly. That would have,
But
yeah. It's the unserious cinephilia which
yeah,
everybody of us like would like to point out about
but
Vasanwala.
there is a bit in this still. Like in I think episode 5 or episode 6, there are references to Dharmendra.
Yes,
But
yes, yes.
we're getting ahead of ourselves, obviously, and
Mm,
Dhruv is going to hate us for the structure of this if he
mm,
doesn't already hate us as much as a person or two people can be hated. I've read the book in its entirety because I
mm.
just read fast, and
I
that's all
wish I
my
had the
day-to-day job is the
I
reading.
wish I had the time to read it today. I was planning to finish it today. I did not have the time. But
Yeah,
it was a pretty fast, it goes
yeah,
by pretty quick. So it's not as if
it
it
is.
has so much flowery language or any shit like that. It goes
It
by
does.
pretty.
It isn't even very deep. It's very much. Oh, I remember this. So here's this anecdote. I
Yeah, yeah,
remember
yeah.
this. So here's this anecdote. And the show actually does a really good job of taking those anecdotes and either moving the timeline
Or
around a little bit
dramatizing it. Or
or
dramatizing.
dramatizing it a
Yeah.
fair bit. Like I think the some of the juicier bits, like the suspension, the first suspension is accurate in terms of when it happens,
Hmm.
but like misappropriation of funds is something that Sunil Gupta, the actual person, was accused of later on,
Hmm.
at least as far as the book is concerned,
Hmm.
and it's brought forward to meet Rahul Bhatt's character's interaction with his character,
Yeah.
which is, I think, a good place to dive into. Rahul Bhatt is quite something in this.
Yeah. He's quite something in this. His character is mostly an amalgamation, if I'm not mistaken, or
Yeah,
it's
of
imaginary.
multiple DSPs or yeah, whatever,
Hmm.
fictionalization basically.
Fictionalization. Rajesh Tomar, his character is called, and he's essentially quote unquote the antagonist. I was seeing
Yeah,
a recent interview with the cast.
yeah.
The interviewee is an a-hole, but let's not go there.
The
He's the
interviewee as in Rahul Bhatt.
no, the interviewer. I'm sorry, the
अच्छा,
interviewer
who?
is an
ध्रुव
a-hole.
काट देगा ये.
Huh?
ध्रुव काट देगा ये. Who was the interviewer?
Yeah. No, but the thing is, कि in that interview, I remember him specifically stating कि the fact that his character is such a quote unquote unlikable character or an a-hole
Hmm.
character, the one semblance of humanity which the director brings into the table is the fact कि he has a garden which
Yeah,
he himself tends to in the jail.
yeah. And
That
which
is
is the setting of a superb meltdown towards the end.
yeah. Like he gets offended कि मेरे बगीचे में घुसा है ऐसे.
Which is also like eerily similar to an Amazon Prime documentary, Dancing on the Grave,
Maybe, yeah, 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 maybe.
wherein a man killed his wife and planted her coffin in the
Hmm.
garden.
Hmm. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, he's also given like an arc of an estranged wife and a
Hmm.
child, very much like the character Rahul Bhatt played in Ugly. Even in
Yes,
that
very much.
film, the estranged slash ex-wife was called Shalini.
Yes.
Even there, he had a young daughter.
But unlike Ugly, I think Motwane is much more, how do I put this? Sorted rather than angry. Because in
Yeah,
Ugly, Kashyap was like, everybody is bad. Everybody
yeah.
is bad.
Everybody's looking to make a quick buck.
Everybody is looking to make a quick buck, even the ex-wife. Everybody is
Yeah.
doing that. I'm like, okay.
Funnily enough, in that film, the only person who's actually interested in looking for the child is the stepfather,
Yes. Who
because
is
that's his
who
job and
is
it's also
yeah.
revenge.
Yeah, who is basically even in stories, quote unquote stories, is not the case. Or most
Yeah,
of the time, the stepfathers are the quote unquote bad guys for the
the bad
protagonist
guys. Yeah,
battle. Yeah. Anyway, it's not about getting sidetracked here. I'm just saying
yeah,
ki it's the very different differentiation of what happens between most movies and what this TV series is trying to do, because this TV
yeah.
series at the end of the day is about rehabilitation as well
Right.
as breaking the pattern,
Yeah,
because it's it's also how different we are used to watching prison life in movies, because we are much more used to like American prison stories,
absolutely. Yeah,
or in some cases European, like if people have seen the Melville movies or any other of the
yeah,
movies set in European countries. So their jails is vastly different from the Tihar jail that is shown here, and I'm pretty sure it is It is symbolic to what the actual reality of the jail is. Ki ek bada
Yeah.
courtyard hai. There are barracks, quote unquote
I mean, Tihar
dormitories.
is much larger than the show suggests it is,
Yeah, yeah,
but
yeah,
the expansion is also more recent. So I don't know whether we'll get to see that in subsequent seasons, because we do get a moment where they declare that the prison will be split into multiple wings and things
yeah.
like that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But I think some of the basic criteria, the basic pattern is the same, right?
Yeah,
If in the prison, if you have to survive, you have to join one or two of the gangs.
yeah,
Some of the prisoners will have to join a gang. So there are three gangs in the prison, three main
yep,
gangs in the prison, within which the internal politics of the entire prison goes forward
yeah.
throughout. And it's like it's a
And
weird.
it's also a bit of community consolidation. So
Yeah, yeah, 100%.
the
It's
Sikhs
like
are all sorted into the Sardar gang.
Sardar
The
gang,
Tyagis and the
Dagis.
UP Bhaiyas are all in the
Yeah,
Tyagi gang.
yeah.
And presumably the Haryanvis, which are the Ranas,
Yeah,
are all the Haddis for some reason.
Haddis for some reason. Yeah,
I never got the reason why they call it Haddi gang.
yeah. But so and
For a second, I thought it was it was a reference to that movie Nawazuddin did, right? A movie called Haddi.
yeah, in which he played a transvestite, if I'm not
I think
mistaken.
so, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
was like, is this a reference to that? I hope not, please.
No, I don't think so. I doubt if Motwane has even seen that movie. But anyway, so it came out on
Motwane
C5. I'm
directed
sure he didn't.
Ananya Pandey in a movie. Let's not put too much credit on his plate or in his bank account.
Yeah. No, but again, the point being, it's ultimately a study of that
Yeah,
interesting and weird ecosystem in which Sunil Gupta finds himself in. And
yeah.
I think Sunil Gupta's character is a good audience surrogate because he immediately enters, and how he gets appointed into the role is also
Is
an
also, yeah.
interesting one.
It's a very typical, like, I need a job, the post emergency sort of situation of a lowering employment, of a falling employment rate in the country.
Hmm.
I remember in 2017 we were looking at some stats, and it was the worst employment rate in 40 years,
Hmm.
which computes with the show's timeline as well.
Hmm.
So it's he's supposed to be a railways employee and stuff like that.
Anytime you mention emergency, I just remember tomorrow Kangna Ranaut's movie is coming out. It is getting
Fantastic.
three shows in Jalpaiguri, by the way. But
He's getting one show in London. That and Azad. Kangana Ranaut and Ajay Devgan. It's like rascals all over again.
yep. Anyway, मतलब
So sorry. I'm pretty sure Dhruv likes rascals, you know.
I am sure.
But I think what I like is that when he's asked during that interview, "क्यों चाहिए तुम्हें ये नौकरी?" and he's like, "Where there is no other job to be had. The employment
Yeah, yeah,
exchange
yeah.
is this is
Hmm.
all that's available."
Hmm.
So this whole, I think it undercuts the whole pursuit of the civil services that Indians are told to embark upon constantly.
Yep.
Um, and it's also very different from what the actual Sunil Gupta's circumstances to come to the job were. He wanted a challenge, and he came from a reasonably all right family in terms of
I also
finances.
I also think that entire interview ka segment in which he's
Mm,
interviewed and he's in the room,
yeah,
which becomes like a overall story ka
yeah,
packaging which goes through multiple episodes and finally arrives at the end point. I think
yeah,
that is also imagined to a certain degree. Ki wahan par,
definitely.
yeah, yeah, yeah. That is also imagined. Ki
But
post
I like
interview.
that the IPS officer who's interviewing him does come across. He does. Their paths do cross later on.
Hmm.
Joyce and Gupta is the actor,
Joyce
I
and
think,
Gupta, yeah.
playing JP Singh.
Hmm.
Uh, it's just, I think it's a fantastic cast of characters. Very, very male show. To
Very
be
male.
very, but there weren't too many women in the prison service system, at least
Yeah,
in
but
the
it
early
is.
80s.
Yeah, that is also true, but it is still
It's
noticeable to a certain degree, which
Yeah,
begs
definitely. Like that, the women are either love interests or mothers usually,
mothers.
or
Yeah,
in one case, auntie.
yeah.
Uh, the
That is one
neighboring,
weird story, by the way.
yeah,
That
but
episode itself is quite weird.
Jail Ka Khana is the episode, yeah.
Yeah.
But I love the romantic angle and the way it plays into the show. If there's an angle I didn't like with a woman, it was the angle between Megha Burman and Anurag Thakur's characters.
Oh yeah, that
Anurag
one.
Thakur
That
is
one I didn't
Dahiya.
like. That one I didn't also like, and I also didn't like कि I don't think that Sunil Gupta ka romantic angle. I think it works quote unquote in a vacuum. I don't think it
Yeah,
works too much for the show. I did appreciate how it ties, how Motwane
ties in.
manages to
Yeah,
tie it up in the end.
but
Matlab.
there's a problem over there that I noticed, at least, in that she appears to be from the character is called Priya, who accidentally calls Tihar jail, and Sunil answers the phone, and
Hmm,
that's where the friendship picks up.
hmm.
Uh,
मुझे
and
भी मुझे भी जानना है कि ऐसा कैसे होता है, ठीक है?
आई थिंक होता था पहले तो हम तो मतलब रेगुलर लैंडलाइन के जमाने में पले बड़े हैं ना,
हाँ,
लाइक
हाँ।
जब आ
नया
चुका था
लैंडलाइन जब
लैंडलाइन.
घुस हाँ, जब नया-नया लैंडलाइन आया तब
But I think that's where the problem is. The character, by the way, is played by an actress called Samya Jain, I think.
हुँ,
Uh, she's from a relatively affluent family by the looks of it. Why is it that when she calls up, she says, "Ghar mein abhi abhi phone laga hai," and I'm just dialing any random number. I think there is some play over there.
हुँ,
Like she wants to talk to this guy or whatever, or
हुँ।
she's liked the voice she's heard. So the first
Yeah,
time
maybe.
round, so she's calling again. So there's
हुँ,
a bit of subterfuge happening. I first thought, "Arey, galti ho gayi hai," but then I said it's such a meticulously made show,
हुँ।
such a basic error in terms of her financial status and her telephone connection. They're not going to make. So
सर मुझे बेसिक प्रेमिस ही अजीब लगा बट ठीक है भाई।
no, but I found it.
मैं ले लेता हूँ, ठीक
I'll
है।
tell you why I think it's interesting. It's also because you see Tomar and his estranged wife. You see Mukhopadhyay, who is presumably, first of all, he's a neglectful husband, and then you learn that he is capable of abuse.
ओह या!
So there is that whole angle at play. And then you see a normal relationship.
हुँ,
Or, even he has limited interaction with his wife. The guy is a bit of a lout, but there is tenderness in that interaction.
हुँ। सो यू
Where
मीन टू
with
से
these
दैट इट
people at the
वर्क्स एज़ अ
beginning of their
काउंटरफॉइल
careers.
सो यू मीन टू से इट वर्क्स एज़ अ
Yeah,
काउंटरफॉइल।
they work as counterfoils to these bitter older men who
हुँ,
are unable to make their lives work, even though their careers clearly appear to have worked out for them.
yeah. Mukhopadhyay is played by Tota Roy
Tota
Choudhury, who
Roy
is
Chaudhary.
clearly having a career resurgence at this point in both the
And he's
Bengali
really
and
good.
the film industry. He is good. He has always been good.
He's a proper noir character when he strikes that matches and says, Dahiya kya?
Yeah.
If you just tone down the lighting in that scene, it's such a great
Hmm.
frame.
No, no. He's a good actor. He's quite a good actor. But
Even
he's
I thought uh, it's a show that has very nifty casting in that none of them is very well known,
yeah,
but the bigger players in terms of power are, you're like, huh, I've seen this guy somewhere.
yeah.
So you've seen Rahul Bhatt
Like
somewhere, you've seen
well-known
Joy
character
Gupta
actors.
somewhere.
Like well-known
Huh.
character actors. Yeah.
Mir Sarwar is there in
Yeah.
as Mahmool Bhatt,
Hmm.
which is an interestingly tackled storyline, shall we say.
Yep. Yep.
I don't
So
know if it does justice to
so
the whole line.
let's talk about the prisoners for a bit.
Yeah,
Let's talk
the
about Sobraj
individual
for us. Let's talk about Sobraj.
Sobraj, yeah.
Yeah.
Siddhant Gupta plays
Siddharth
Sobraj,
Gupta
fresh off playing a Devanand surrogate in Jubilee, and
and
then
Jawaharlal Nehru in Freedom at
Jawaharlal
Midnight.
Nehru in Freedom at Midnight, which I have not watched yet.
Iffy. His
If he,
Nehru is iffy.
okay,
Slightly iffy. I believe his Sobraj is also slightly iffy.
right.
Slightly. I
Have you
think
seen the Randeep Hooda version of Sobraj?
was that the no, I
Mayor
don't think
Charles,
no, I don't think I've seen that. I've seen the other one, which we did
the
the heart.
Serpent,
Yeah, the serpent. Yeah, I've seen that one. That one I've seen. But I think his accent work is slightly iffy.
right?
Siddhan Gupta's accent work is slightly iffy. I think he gets the presence right. He's like
Yeah. Definitely very
appropriately,
slithery.
yeah, appropriately slithery. He's like comes out of nowhere, disappears out of nowhere.
He's just floating. Like I think in the first episode, he's called the super IG of
Yeah,
the prison.
yeah.
So it's, he's very much that very dicey character ki
The
पता नहीं क्या कर
the
देगा.
influential prisoner basically.
Yeah,
So पैसा है इसलिए he's the perfect personification of the character which Scorsese in Goodfellas would construct an entire storyline around in say
yeah,
the gangsters would be given an entire wing जहाँ पर वो
yeah,
लोग मतलब किचन में ये सब बना रहे हैं सब कुछ we have
yeah,
known for a very long time that entire point is completely untrue उतना
yeah,
कुछ था नहीं but that's the quote unquote fantasizing, and that's kind of what Sobraj is also occupying that space. He's like
Yeah,
partly like Hannibal Lecter for
in a way,
Salman
yeah.
Gupta's character.
It's also surprising because Sobraj is very litigation heavy. So he's not yet come down on Motwane and Satyanshu and Netflix for making this show and for
Isn't he
talking about it.
90 years old?
सर उस वो आदमी इतना अटेंशन का भूखा है ना,
Uh,
वो कुछ भी करेगा वो. Hey Sobraj, if you're listening to this, you're a dirty, disgusting murderer. You're nothing more than that, and you'll never be anything more than that.
uh, yeah, but clearly, his role in the show is basically the devil
Yeah,
on Sunil's shoulder, more or less.
absolutely.
Yeah,
Which is also like Rahul Bhatt's. They're both devils on his
they're
shoulder,
both.
right?
It's a better the devil you know than the devil you
Yeah,
don't. In a way,
exactly.
kind of that. Yeah,
I I liked that they went into like proper like black warrant territory with the whole proceedings
yeah,
of the hangings. There are, I think, Mr. Gupta witnessed something like six executions in his
eight,
entire career.
8 or 6.
Six or eight, something like
Yeah,
that. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
The first was Ranga and Billa.
Rangan
So
Billa.
it's a case I have known about since I was a kid, which sounds very grisly.
Hmm.
But Geeta and Sanjay Chopra's father was in the Indian Navy. My dad was in the army.
Okay.
So, and our dad was very, with my sister and me, he was very clear that these are harsh realities about life that you should know, that there are dangerous people out there on the streets, and you
Hmm.
don't. I don't know what his motive was really, but he used to tell us about these things. So Ranga and Billa I've known about for quite a while.
What do you mean kids shouldn't know about this? Pishaw, pishaw, I
Exactly.
say.
Um, and of course, their father is still alive, Admiral
Yes.
Chopra.
Hmm.
Uh, he's done a fair amount of work outside of his service in the Navy.
Hmm.
But what struck me about this episode was like how unendingly grim it was. Like everything about it is just,
Very bleak.
yeah, absolutely,
I
like
think I
it sucks the
kinda
life out of
agreed.
you,
I think I
which is
kinda
great.
agreed. I think I kinda agreed with you, Thora, ki it kinda veered into exploitative territory.
Exploitation, right? I did not like the frame of I mean we can go spoilers,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
And
we can go spoilers. Yeah, yeah.
it I don't think it should have, even with outlines and shadows and lighting and whatever, I don't think depicting what happened to Geeta was the right thing to do.
Yeah.
It just is not a, it's not irresponsible as a filmmaker, it's a tad bit insensitive at the very
Hmm.
least, and it's not needed. You know what happened,
Hmm.
right?
And the weird part is the flourish in that entire scene. The
Yeah,
editing of it.
yeah,
We don't know who did what, so even the editing is like unsure ki who did what. So it's like
yeah.
every second in every frame, the character itself is changing. The perpetrator of each deed,
Yeah,
which is done via editing. But even that brings a whole another layer of murkiness to that entire
yeah.
thing.
It's almost like you don't want to be watching that, and nobody should be filming it
Hmm.
anyway, right?
Hmm.
I would say that depicting the 21 stab wounds on Sanjay's body is far more palatable
Hmm.
than depicting even the faintest shadow of rape on screen.
Yeah.
But
But
that's
again,
also like a personal aesthetics and moral conundrum for
yeah,
me, at least.
if you wanted to, and I think that is one of the more, I think, necessary criticism of Black Warren ki it tries to be entertaining, but even at some point, it's like tonal changes become whiplash.
Yeah.
It's like very much,
Also, it's the only crime it really goes into.
yeah,
Like it depicts Kartar and Ujagar's execution. It
hmm,
depicts their crime, but in very different circumstances, naturally.
yeah,
And it doesn't, funnily enough, it doesn't depict Makbul Bhatt's crimes.
yeah,
He was executed for the murder of a CID inspector called Mr. Amarchand in Kashmir.
hmm.
That was the basis of his execution. I
Yeah. It
don't think
is
it
not
tries to
shown.
make him out to be a political prisoner either. He's just there.
He's just there. Yeah.
Again, I feel like these are things, if you're going into with one character, I feel like then go into it wholeheartedly. Like go into it in
Yeah,
each
and
instance.
in that situation, the creator's personal preference on which cases he wants to focus and which
Yeah,
cases he doesn't want to comes into play. Of course,
Also,
there
I
are other
realize that the
there could be
Makbul
other.
Bhatt case is sensitive, right? Because
Yeah, maybe
we are
can
in
be
the midst
sensitive.
of opening up the Yasin Malik case. The CBI wishes to prosecute
Hmm.
the murder of four IAF personnel in 1990. So there's contentiousness as to whether or not to depict Makbul Bhatt's crimes. But the fact of the matter is, Makbul Bhatt has been dead for 41 years.
Yeah.
Uh, what brought about his execution, which is Ravindra Mhatre, who was murdered in Birmingham, who was a diplomat, also been 41 years. It's been at least 55, 60 years since the crimes for which Makbul Bhatt
Hmm.
was executed were committed. So we've got enough time in the middle that you
Yeah.
can depict those crimes uh, in light of like whatever people may think of the Kashmir situation. Maybe you want to tread softly, but that officer did die at Makbul Bhatt's hands. To make a show about whether or not that was actually the case is a completely different thing, right?
Yeah.
I feel
I
like
also think I also think
just depict the crime.
yeah. So if I take your logic and if I apply that to a show, like every show has its own structure, right? Ki
Yeah,
this show, quote unquote, called Black Warrant, is supposed
yeah.
to be about the Black
The
Warrants and
black
also
warrants.
supposed to be studying about the ecosystem.
Yeah,
From episode 4, I think it becomes entirely about the ecosystem. The Black
ecosystem,
Warrants
right.
thing becomes like a overall overarching key packaging
Which
thing.
is my structural issue with
That
the
is a
show.
structural issue. That becomes a structural issue after a point, because I'm like, okay, now it is becoming like you have started this, so you have to continue it after a point because
I
we have
think they should have
started.
just extended it by one more episode or two
Mm,
more episodes and given us the hanging of Keher and Satwant Singh
mm.
for the murder of Indira Gandhi. Again, politically contentious. Do you want to depict it in light of recent events in Canada and the US? But why not? When the show is about Black Warrant and about, I'm sure when the time comes, like they will show her assassination.
I am pretty sure they will. I don't think. I think that is more of a choice key. This, we will show this in season 2. That is
Yeah,
more of a that
you
is
because you
totally
know
fine.
what's coming. I
Yeah.
half expected this season to end with the SP getting a call that Keher and Satwant are being transferred to Tihar to stand trial because they stood trial in Tihar
Yeah.
and not in like Patiala House or
Yeah.
wherever. Patiala House, Dhruv,
No,
is
but
a
I was also
courthouse.
thinking.
It is not a film. We are
Yeah.
not referring to your friend Mr. Advani. I'm sorry. The director of Kal Ho Na Ho.
Yes. Oh wow. We are not going there again.
No, we are just taking Dhruv's case at this point.
No, no, but it's also I knew how the show. I kind of knew how the show was going to end anyway because that's how it's supposed to be. Season 1, if you have to do a cliffhanger, what is the bigger cliffhanger than Sobraj's escape?
So Braj's escape, yeah.
What could be a bigger cliffhanger? It's a great
There isn't
cliffhanger.
one.
That
That's true.
entire classical music playing in the background, and
Yeah.
it's like great cliffhanger. How he did it.
But it rushes into that seventh episode, right?
Oh yeah, it
That
does. That it
like
does.
at breakneck speed, it just and it rushes through that episode also. Like conflicts are started and resolved in that one episode in like 20 minutes. So it doesn't have you by the balls at any point. Ki yaar, fuck, what will happen now?
And it's also, but I think there are some individual things which I really like the second
Yeah,
episode is it's the Rangabilla hanging, right? The
yeah,
second episode.
yeah,
So the second episode, how it happened, ki the hanging may the pulse is still
yeah,
pulse you can still feel, and that
yeah.
entire sequence, I'm like, it this is so bizarre, it could only be real.
Only it, yeah, absolutely.
No way somebody imagined this.
I think the whole process of how they prepare uh, for the hanging, as opposed to because we are used to seeing any film that is associated with
Hmm.
execution or any show
Hmm.
in India, at least, will be seen through the lens of freedom fighters.
Yes.
So we are shown a heroic or a somber sort of. So the somber is naturally Sardar Udham by Shujit Sarkar.
Yeah.
It's a very methodically done, methodically prepared scene and everything. The heroic is Rajkumar Santoshi's The Legend of Bhagat Singh,
Legend of
which is
Bhagat Singh. Yep.
Mera Rang De Basanti playing
Hmm.
and the
Black.
hanging
Yeah.
yard
These
being
two.
prepared, like
Yeah.
everything, the sandbags being dropped and all that. So over
This
here,
is
that is
like full
completely gone. This is the
this is like
criminals.
full demythifying everything.
Absolutely.
It's like the hangmen are being celebrated as they enter. They're like heroes.
Yeah.
They're being given
Yeah.
like drinks and everything. Like they're rock
Absolutely.
stars. I'm like,
For
that
a
is
second,
one
Amartya, you
weird way.
wanted that job.
Yep. Fully. I'm like, that is one weird way to categorize these people.
Yeah.
I'm like, nice.
Al-
Strange.
Also, because I think I know. I mean, we've kind of talked about this whether the show will go the whole hog in depicting all 35 years of Sunil Gupta's service.
Hmm.
But because if it does go the whole hog and if it does show the last hanging of his career,
Hmm.
that is where that was held at a time when there were no professional hangmen left in the country.
Yeah.
So it had to be improvised essentially by cops and jailers and, you know, I don't
Hmm.
know, Tamil Nadu special police personnel.
Yeah.
It's just bizarre.
Yeah. So
So,
it's
but
like
yeah, the second episode is, I think, also, even though it, like, we've already remarked about its problems, it is probably the show's centerpiece in terms of how
fully.
grisly it can get.
It is the most memorable episode also. In a way, it is the most
Yeah,
memorable episode. Yeah. I
I
think
think. Sorry, go ahead.
no, no, you go ahead then. You go ahead.
So what I also liked was that it tries to get into each character's life, like the whole Mangat and home trouble situation is a
I liked how it ultimately ties all of it up,
yeah,
like especially the Mangat thing. The Mangat
yeah,
family thing is building, right? In the background
yeah,
itself is building. His brother has joined the militant group, and because you are so invested into the entire plot machination, it doesn't strike in your
yeah.
head that's where it is going. It is going ultimately going to tie up into the
Going to tie into
Indira
84, yeah,
Gandhi assassination. So I'm
yeah,
like, when that happens, I'm like, that is nice. That is a nice bit of screenplay work. How you did
yeah,
it, how it ultimately tied up, and how you are indulging in that entire character ka investment, what is ultimately
hmm,
leading him to drink, what is
yeah,
ultimately leading him to losing control, what is
yeah,
ultimately leading him to lose all his faith in quote unquote law or any sort of morality whatsoever, which is already in dire straits, by the way.
yeah.
If you are in a jail, it's like morality is anyway fluid for these
Right.
people. It's like they are more
So
concerned
he'll
with
makes do
politics.
with like beating prisoners
Yeah,
and
yeah.
like to. I didn't like the fact that they try to play his attempt at restoring order off right at the end for gags. Like he's trying to hit people into submitting to orderliness and, straight
But I
lines
think
kind of
I
thing.
think I think there's a
It becomes a
blatant
comedic moment. I think it would have been interesting as a dramatic moment instead,
it's a
wherein
blatant irony, because that's what they're doing. For maintaining order, you have to utilize chaos and in order
yeah,
to maintain order. What I did not like is the music in that sequence, because it is like
yeah.
full on 80s to
Very
90s rock, and
playful,
I'm like,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
playful
Something out
90s
of a
rock.
Vijay Anand, Jewel Thief, Johnny Mera Naam kind of movie.
Kind of, and I'm like, that's even like bordering on celebration territory, which I'm like, I
Yeah,
don't think you need to do that per se. But again,
yeah.
what else could you have done? I don't know, to be very honest. So I'm not
I don't
even
know. I'm
going
a big fan of silence for some reason. Like I would have just loved the sound of chaos.
chaos. Maybe,
Like
yeah, maybe
no
the
music.
noise. Yeah, maybe the noise. Because I think even Motwane said, like, the jail ecosystem is very interesting because there is nothing happening outside. There is no other noise.
Hmm.
It's like crickets and everything. There is no
Yeah, yeah,
traffic. There are no banging of kitchen utensils. None of that
yeah,
sound is there. So I'm like you are telling this to me. Maybe just show it. Maybe just
yeah.
show that silence.
I don't know if it does a great job of relaying the tension. Like while it does tie the whole 84 sequence together,
Hmm.
I don't know if it does a good enough job of relaying the tension in the air in Delhi.
I
It's
don't
a
think I
city
don't think its
wherein
intention. I don't think its intention was to go to the city at all.
I don't think so either, but like when he's at home, right? They're saying, "Oh, बड़ा बेटा घर पे है, बेटी भी घर पे ही है, college बंद है, this, that, and the other." I
Huh.
feel like just him riding through the city
Hmm.
on his scooter as a cop,
Hmm.
or well, as a man in khaki. He's not a cop. We're supposed to remember that
Yeah,
jailers are
we are
not
supposed to
cops.
yeah, jailers are not cops.
Uh,
It is
at a
very
time when
clear
the
that
Delhi
hierarchy, by the way.
Yeah, at a time when the Delhi police was willy-nilly taking part in summary executions of innocent Sikhs.
Hmm.
uh, there's some great literature out there for people who are interested in wanting to find out what happened to the Sikhs of Delhi, at least,
Hmm.
uh, including a big book by Sanjay Suri, whose newspaper article is actually the one shown in the show that Indira Gandhi has been shot dead.
Yes, 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 yes.
So not the same Sanjay Suri who's the actor. Let's make things very very clear for people who tend to think कि एक नाम का एक ही बंदा हो सकता है दुनिया में. Uh, but I think that would have added something to the show, certainly. Like it
Hmm.
tries to do that India coffee house bit with him and Priya and mutton chops and whatever.
Yes.
But a little more of that would have probably worked gone some way in
Maybe, but
conveying the shows.
I didn't quote unquote mind, because I think the entire
Hmm.
intention, again, it's the whole focusing on one specific ecosystem and how
Yeah,
living in that ecosystem is affecting those characters. So,
fair
in that
enough.
regard, I think Tihar jail ecosystem itself is so unique that he's not focusing on outside. And I think he's trying to make that a microcosm. It's like
Yeah,
the outside world is affecting here. So, the
yeah,
paranoia towards the Sikhs after that assassination bleeds into the
yeah.
Tihar jail,
Into Tihar jail.
which is why the entire segregation begins to occur, and that's how the solution comes into focus. Ki how do you ultimately solve this segregation into gangs? Just
Yeah,
separate them alphabetically. I'm like,
alphabetically.
that's like the
समझे
most
समझे
ruthless.
सीधे चूतियों.
Yes.
I loved that. The way it closes into that character and says, just one second.
Yeah, yeah.
Dhruv, you want an edit at 34 minutes? I'm making a note of that.
तू घर जा, मैं तेरे भले के लिए कह रहा हूँ। यहाँ टिक नहीं पाएगा, खा जाएंगे तुझे।
No, I think it's a ruthless way of, solving a problem.
Yeah,
It's
it is.
like separating communities and everything, which was the entire perspective of Tihar jail. Ki
Tihar as
instead
a
of one specific community, it's a community consolidation, like you just said. So it's
yeah.
like, yes,
And
separating
caste
that.
consolidation
Yeah,
also. Like you can see that in the first superintendent, or at least that's what I inferred from the book, that he wanted only, he's a Vij, he wants people only from Haryana. So
yeah,
Dahiya gets in, Mangad gets in because he's a Sardar.
because it's a,
But this is a frail Gupta boy from Delhi.
yeah. So he's not
So
getting in
he's
for,
not yet making the grain,
yeah,
making the cut.
yeah.
So and until Sobraj steps in and sort of helps him out
Hmm.
or whatever.
Very interesting that they don't actually say what he did, which is very interesting to me. Like they never actually
I
said
think
what he
the
actually did.
inference is that he just bribed the guy
Yeah, maybe.
straight up, like because the character himself looks so easily corruptible,
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
for lack of a better word.
I
But
think I think each of the episode can also be divided by the jailer who is entering the show.
yeah,
It's like every time a new jailer enters, a new
there's a
story arc
Vij,
begins.
there's a Mukhopadhyay, and then there's a JP Singh phase
Yeah,
to the whole
it's a whole
show.
arc itself.
And it
And
also is pretty grim in terms of how it shows you JP Singh's arc, right? He goes from being a man who is demanding idealism from the candidate sitting before him for
hmm,
an interview board
hmm,
to being the very sort of important part of the corrupt machinery inside Tihar itself,
hmm.
which is so almost troubling that. And then you remember that, man, I've known this my entire life, but the show just sort of reinforces so many of the problems we
And
know to be a part of our
it
system.
reinforces, I don't think the correct word is casually, it reinforces
Yeah,
it nonchalantly.
yeah,
It's all the part of that ecosystem की corruption
yeah.
तो होगा ही, मतलब corruption अगर नहीं होगा तो कैसे चलेगा? And I'm like, okay then.
What I thought was that it's interesting. The personally most affable people
Hmm.
are professionally very dodgy. The
Yes.
professionally most solid person
Is
is
personally
personally
dodgy.
dodgy. Yeah,
Yeah.
like Mukhopadhyay, played by Tota Roy Chaudhary.
Yeah.
He is willing to do prison reforms, this, that, and the other.
Hmm.
He's also willing to hit his wife.
Yeah.
I mean, today's Elon Musk supporters would say justifiably. I still don't think an affair justifies domestic violence.
Again, it's like,
Nothing justifies domestic
yeah, nothing
violence.
justifies it, to be very honest. But again, it's also like, I did not, again, it's a tonal whiplash because the entire
Hmm.
domestic, the entire affair of
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Dahiya's
Dahiya
character.
and Tota Roy Chaudhary's character's wife,
Yeah.
Seema Madam.
Yeah. So I'm like, that entire story thread itself, I can understand where it's going. It's showing the emotional dynamics of two characters. Like the Hiya's
Yeah,
emotional dynamic with this woman is very different from Sunil's dynamic with
Priya.
Priya,
Yeah,
with whom he has a quote unquote slow romantic, burgeoning
yeah.
romantic relationship. So it's very
Very
different in
Lutera vibes.
very Lutera vibes, yes. So it's like,
गार्डन में भी घूम रहे हैं पेड़ों के नीचे.
yes. But again, it's also like that's a very strange sort of tonal whiplash,
Absolutely.
especially in how Mukhopadhyay finds out, and
Yeah,
how he manages to get about, how he finds out, and his reaction to first hitting Sunil and then firing him and then
yeah.
realizing what actually
That
happened.
happened.
Yeah, which is also kind of like juxtaposed with what Tomar believes ki Sunil himself is weak enough ki he
Yeah,
shouldn't be brought in,
Yeah,
which we also need to talk about ki how the dynamics of the characters changes slowly, ki the
yeah,
entire group dynamics itself. Because again, I think Sunil's own conception of what jail should be, that kindness is kind of seen as a weakness for
yeah.
him from
It
these
is.
people.
Yeah.
Yeah, but he's also like stubborn to that degree, which is
Oh yeah,
which
yeah, yeah.
yeah, which also makes sense because it's also working because of the societal perception of what a jailer actually is, and which is why
Is
there
yeah,
is a second hand embarrassment from the parents' side to actually not introduce him as a jailer, which I
as a jail.
liked. I'm like,
Yeah,
that is also quite realistic.
it is. It is, and I think what's also important to understand is that the reason for keeping Sunil out is as much for his safety
Yes,
as it is.
as
It's
it
not that
for
they are
their own.
unwilling to share the money that they make.
No, of course not.
Right. Of
Yeah.
course, Tomar screws him over with the canteen stuff
Hmm.
and then helps him out. So he sort of balances the whole
Hmm.
ledger in a way.
Hmm.
But literally so, actually. But
Yep.
they also realize that Sunil would be the weakest link if
Yeah.
they were to bring him in on it.
Hmm.
And so it's sensible to keep him out for his own good.
Hmm.
And maybe somewhere like Tomar has an understanding that, theek hai, this one person being idealistic is one thing I can tolerate.
Yeah, that
But
is the
like
key
if
word,
he
tolerate.
doesn't he doesn't tolerate two idealists और
Yeah,
two मेरे को एक शास्त्री कम था जो दूसरा भी पाठ पढ़ाना शुरू कर दिया.
which is why the second one gets quite a matlab, not
Yeah,
gruesome, quite a bleak ending.
yeah.
The second idealist, which, and it's also interesting that that idealism comes to the character in the similar moment that Sunil is actually facing a dilemma of his own idealism.
Losing his, yeah.
Yeah, he's losing his.
I thought Rajendra Gupta was fantastic.
He's
He's
fantastic.
always been a very good actor, but he was just so heartbreakingly good.
He was very
And
very good in this, and
fuck,
especially
Rahul Bhatt was evil, like
yeah,
almost.
fully. Both Rahul Bhatt and
And Joy
Joyce,
Sen Gupta. Joy
both
Sen Gupta, too, with that affable uncle
uncle
type
vibes. Yeah,
smile,
yeah, yeah,
you
yeah.
know. And I don't know if you noticed this about Rahul Bhatt's character, but his whole hairstyle, his sunglasses, he is like strutting around like a hero.
Mm.
Very much like I don't know if you remember Manorama 6 Feet Under.
Yeah, I do.
Amay Deol's character,
Amar Deol's character. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
वो sunglasses, leather jacket,
Mm.
bike at the beginning.
धाकड़ है, बंदे में धाकड़
Dhakad.
है, बंदे में धाकड़ है. That's
Also Kangana Ranaut reference.
again
Emergency release tomorrow.
emergency release tomorrow. Yes, we are doing way more promotion than even she did for our movie.
I mean, it's good she didn't waste money on promoting Dhakad though, right? It
Yeah,
bombed.
bombed
So,
massively.
yeah,
Yeah,
let's hope the director has better luck with his next film.
who knows,
Uh,
man.
I mean, he's making it with Farhan Akhtar, so
Let's see.
fortune may or may not favor the brave.
May not favor. Yeah,
So, I think over here, that is that idea of मैं hero हूँ and यहाँ पर like I'm the big guy, and
yeah,
that slowly sort of wears away towards the end, where he's relegated. Like it's Dahiya and Sunil who are fronting it with the SP, and he's sitting at the back,
yeah,
providing like occasional quips.
yeah,
And by then, even Dahiya is no longer interested in interacting with him.
yeah.
Like all this while, Dahiya has been the. It's like Dahiya wants to be Tomar.
He's the
Now
sole
he's like, oh, I
supporter.
don't want to be.
He wants to maintain that same status quo in the jail because he also believes in that same philosophy that Tomar kind of believes.
Yeah,
Yeah, which I think Mangat was the only one who was still kind of sorta in
on
the
the middle
middle of
ground, kind of.
middle
Yeah.
ground. And I also think that home ground affair is also helping him to stay in the middle ground because he's also confused regarding what.
Confused with his
Yeah,
loyalties and stuff like that.
yeah. And
Uh,
Sunil, though, obviously, is on the.
He's an idealist, straight up.
He's
I
an
think we've also lost the idealist in a lot of our cinema in the recent
yeah.
past. In that, the idealist has become, whenever Sunil is getting dressed at home, you see that boyhood chart from who is an ideal boy or who is a good boy.
Hmm.
I feel like he is aspiring to that good boyness with the method of a proper actor attacking a role.
Yeah.
Whereas Akshay Kumar and company are just playing the goodest boy they can think of
It feels
without actually
strangely
playing.
yeah,
He
it
feels
feels
so much
strangely
like,
unreal. It feels strangely unreal to a certain degree.
yeah,
Like completely removed from any sense of realism. Again, I'm not
hmm,
saying कि realism हर वक्त जरूरी है, but Even goodness has its
Here
flaws.
he is, here he genuinely believes that some good. Also, we are looking at a different time in India's history.
Yeah.
Even though emergency has come and gone, this is still a slightly younger generation. They've
Mm.
not necessarily felt the heat of emergency, you
Yet.
know, yet. So I mean, yet kya, they won't, because emergency is in the past as far as the show is concerned.
Yeah.
They are yet to sort of deal with the challenges that will come up, like communalization of the
Mm.
country's body politic, as it were.
Mm.
In that
Again,
sense,
the
it's
assassination
fascinating.
happens towards the end of the show, right? The assassination happens towards the end.
Yeah,
It's like
yeah,
that radicalization, that communalization will again charge itself up after that assassination itself.
exactly.
Yeah. Each and everything that will happen, we might see more of the disillusionment towards the second
In
season if it ever
If
happens.
there's a second season, yeah.
Yeah.
I do think we should talk about Zahan Kapoor, because we've talked a lot about Sunil Gupta, and it's fitting. I think it's a remarkable
It's a
performance.
remarkable performance. Like somebody was telling me, ki, even if we take into account, we don't usually consider actors coming from which backgrounds. We don't.
Yeah,
But
we don't.
this is true though, okay? Ranbir Kapoor, as much as of a good actor he is, you can't exactly shake off the fact that this is a guy who is coming from the Kapoor family. The Kapoors
Yeah.
are royalties in
Hmm.
Bollywood.
Yeah.
He can't exactly shake that off. Zahan
It's
Kapoor is
ironic, right, that we're discussing the Kapoor family and Law and Order, and Saif Ali Khan has just been stabbed earlier today.
that is something, huh?
Yeah.
Like that is something else altogether. That is something else altogether. It's like,
Says a lot about the peace and tranquility of our cities.
oh yeah, 100%. It doesn't
Um,
matter. It doesn't matter how safe you are at this end of the day. It's like, yeah.
if David Fincher can make a movie with Saif Ali Khan now, home invasion film.
No,
But
but
no, that's insensitive. But we
yeah.
naturally hope that Mr. Khan is now well, and
Mm,
that the cops catch the people involved
yeah, exactly.
and don't let them go. That's unfair to cops, man. They have a hard life.
Yeah. Again, it's like for the Kapoors, I think, like, even if you take that into account, I think
Yeah,
Zahan Kapoor he's almost impeccable in this role. Like
he is
that
almost. Yeah, I would say he is impeccable. Look at the way he speaks.
that
Or
accent, that
that
accent, that
accent is just, it doesn't drop.
no, it doesn't drop at all. And we have seen our fair share of accent dropping,
Oh
mind
yeah,
you.
yeah. In this show, Siddhant Gupta can't figure out what he's doing
Yeah, yeah,
so
yeah,
often, right?
yeah.
And I felt like it was very much like Rajkumar Rao's performance from Omerta, except over there I had a different understanding of why his accent keeps dropping.
Mm.
Over here, I'm like, you're supposed to be French or whatever, so be
Half
French.
Vietnamese, half French, half
One
Indian, something.
knows, full pagal. Puri ka.
He's like you remember
Charles
in Wolf
Sobraj,
of
not
Wall Street.
Siddhant Gupta.
You remember in
Charles
Wolf
Sobraj.
of, you remember in Wolf of Wall Street, like Margot Robbie was introducing herself ki, a little bit of there, a little bit of here.
Yeah,
I'm like a mutt. I'm
yeah.
like, yeah, Charles Sobraj is a mutt,
नहीं
basically.
नहीं नहीं नहीं, dogs are nice. Whatever Dhruv may say about them, dogs are nice. Charles Sobraj is very much a serpent,
Yeah,
crossbred serpent.
yeah. But again, I'm just putting this
Yeah,
out. Yeah,
it's what you're saying is fairly accurate. Also, because he's a proper actor in the sense that he's learned the job of an actor. I mean, sure, some people say Junaid Khan has also learned the job of an actor, and the Lavyapa trailer does not seem to suggest that.
yeah.
For what
And even Maharaj, he was dodgy at best. I
Yeah,
think,
I mean, he was held up by Shalini and by Jaideep Elawat and by
yeah,
Sharwari.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Not so much his own work in that sense.
So again, as much
Very
as you can
Freddie Mercury like in that.
as
No,
much as
like,
you can go and study the craft all you want,
yeah, you have to be good
you have to be
ultimately.
good. A modicum of talent is necessary, and this guy has the chops.
Has it?
This guy
Yeah,
obviously has the chops, and I'm like,
and he's up against good actors. It's not like he's a good actor amidst a sea of, like, Agastya Nandas and Khushi Kapoors. He's a
yikes.
good actor against, like, Rahul Bhatt,
Rahul Bhatt, who
who's
is
a
also a
very
great
good
actor,
actor.
who is also a
Yeah.
great actor. Some at times he's a great actor. So it's like, yeah. And then we have,
On other days, Sanjeet and Dhruv are watching Kennedy.
yeah, and then we have Anurag Thakur. Anurag Thakur is there. Yeah,
He's
is
very good. He's
very good,
really, really good.
really very good. I think people are not talking about him too much, which is a shame. He's
It's
actually,
also because the characters are a bit stereotypically Haryanvi.
yeah,
There's that. I don't know. Do you remember that cop from An Action Hero?
Yes, I do. Which
And
Alavat
it's
is
very
playing,
much.
right? Alavat is
Huh?
playing, right?
No,
Jaideep
no.
Alavat.
Elavat plays the politician. The
No.
cop who says to him, मैं चांद पर जाकर पीसीआर में उसको
Oh
घसीट
yeah.
कर लेकर आऊंगा.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
है ना? तो that would be the jokier version of Dahiya.
Hmm.
So it's almost playing into that stereotype. But the good thing about him is about Anurag Thakur is that even amidst the stereotype, he makes it work.
Yeah, he
It's
makes it work.
difficult to make a stereotype land like
Hmm.
honestly,
Yeah.
and he does that.
Hmm. It, and the guy who is playing the role of Mangat, I don't know who I
Yeah,
don't know
Paramveer
if his
Singh Cheema is his name.
yeah. He's also quite good.
He's very understated, I think, on
Understated.
most
Yeah.
occasions, like very much in the background of things.
He's
As
like
a,
the mid friend out in the
yeah,
trio in which he's the bridge. He's trying to
yeah,
bridge the gap between
he's
these two.
literally that, right? Yeah,
Yeah, he's trying to bridge the gap between these two. And when that guy is not there, that's when these two have to
yeah.
mend their own fences in a way.
I'm not sure whether I agree with casting Mir Sarwar as Makbul Bhatt. Probably because Mir Sarwar has just played a terrorist too many times now. I wish they would
Weird
give him
thing
a,
to be typecast on, no?
yeah, weird thing to get typecast as, no.
Yeah,
I wish he would get other roles. Like he's a damn good actor. Like anybody
yeah,
who's seen him can attest to that. But it's again an interesting portrayal. I wish there was more to the Makbul Bhatt character.
yeah.
Like because Gupta talks about him a fair bit in the book,
Hmm.
at least, that he was a proper pious kind of political prisoner type who
Hmm.
was also a murderer.
Yeah.
So it's that duality could have been explored at least a little bit, and I think that's where the not depicting his crime and his time in prison is the problem. You
Is
need
correct.
to understand that these people became either different people behind bars,
Hmm.
or like Duggal, the guy, the Delhi University commerce graduate who stabs a guy and then strikes up
Hmm.
a friendship with Sunil's intern.
Another weird sort of a quote unquote friendship come romantic track, which I'm
Huh.
like, okay, where is
I think
this
it's trying
going?
to establish that uh, crime can often happen in the heat of the moment. I think
No,
that
no,
is the
that
point
the
of that track,
character
right?
himself is like established, ki
Huh.
ho raha hai. But that quote unquote that romance itself of it all, ki that
Yeah,
which he has with that, I think it's a scholar,
intern. Huh.
intern or scholar, whatever,
Huh.
going to study about the jail. And like
Yeah.
that's also kind of weird, especially that entire restaurant scene.
That I didn't like either.
Yeah.
Like it was, arey, just leave some things out of
Yeah,
the.
maybe. Yeah, maybe.
We don't need to go to two restaurants. Like the one restaurant we've already been to, we went because Sunil was going there.
Yeah.
Duggal is not that interesting.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
I think its payoff comes later, right? Because her horror at realizing he's a murderer
Yeah.
means that his determination to reform or to show a visible sign of reform
Hmm.
means that
Should
he
he?
tells them where the Tyagis are hiding
Yeah.
the weapons.
Hmm. I also liked that entire the Tyagi versus the Haddis ka
Hmm.
altercation ultimately again boils down to the
Of
beginning of
the,
the
yeah, the
entire
snake.
show ki that snake. That
Yeah.
snake thing started all of it. I'm like, that is a very good way to actually
Good, well
bring
thought out,
interest
yeah.
back to that entire thing, entire
And
convolution of that
it's
entire
very
thing.
interesting because in that, at the end of that confrontation, the first episode,
Hmm.
Tomar, played by Rahul Bhatt, tells Sunil,
Hmm.
"This is your fault. You shouldn't have opened your mouth."
Yeah.
At the end,
Yeah.
Sunny Tyagi tells Tomar,
Tomar.
"It's your fault
Yeah.
because you let it play out."
Yeah. You shouldn't have let
You,
it play out. Yeah.
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 I think that is such an interesting counterfoil to how the person in authority sees it
And
versus how the in,
who is below the whip or who is below the whip of
yeah,
authority actually believes it to be.
yeah,
Again, yeah. Again, fascinating sort of mirroring that entire
yeah,
action, because that is like the center, that is the overall centerpiece of that entire thing, because that's
yeah.
how the entire politics is governed by
Govern
everything.
throughout the
It's
show.
like a half of a domino effect only, because it is always
Right.
happening. That entire
Correct.
sequence of that ball coming into the prison from the
Mm.
ball, that is one that also I was very fascinated by, ki how they are
Yeah.
doing it and how it is like it finally solves itself out. Yeah.
Right.
Very gruesome also in a way, ki how it solves itself out. It's a very fascinatingly violent. I was
That's
like,
true.
okay. That is,
Do you expect a second season? Like the response has been positive,
the response has been positive. I don't know about the viewership per se, because I don't
but
know how.
viewership only Netflix knows. Even Vikram Motwani doesn't know the viewership.
No, no, but again, like people talk about this stuff, right?
Hmm.
कि कौन होने
हाँ,
वाला, like,
टॉक तो मतलब माइंडहंटर का भी बहुत हुआ है, but like too expensive to produce ultimately.
yeah, ultimately too expensive to produce, and it's very weird to me. Like, like Patal Lok is coming
Hmm.
out tomorrow. It
Yeah,
ultimately took 5 years for that show to.
but that's also because it's been in the cans for like three.
Yeah, it's been in the cans for like three. So I'm like, people are interested, but again,
Hmm.
I even more than American shows, I don't know how Indian shows. What are the metrics for an Indian show to actually be greenlit for a second season?
Second
Even
season, yeah.
even if they leave, because they leave cliffhangers for every show. ठीक है
Everything, huh?
यार, I don't know why.
If they could, they'd put a cliffhanger at the end of every episode
Exactly.
if
So
it was
I'm like,
possible.
even if you're doing that, it depends on
Hmm.
how you are doing it. Like again, Vikramaditya Motwane's first television show, which I still believe is one of his best work, Sacred Games. Even if many
Yeah,
people don't like season two, I really like season two. I
I don't
think
like season two either.
I really like season two. I think season two. I think the cliffhanger nature of season two allows it to end on a quote unquote ambiguous note, which it shouldn't have. But I
Hmm.
think that's a weird form of stuck in amber for a show which is not supposed to be stuck in amber.
I think it just loses the plot of the novel at one point, and
It does
the
lose its
path
plot on
it
the novel.
takes is not very interesting to me
It does lose
personally.
its plot towards the bit kyuki at the end of the day the interesting bit about Sacred Games was always how partition separates people
Yeah,
who are supposed to be family members but who don't even know each other and who find themselves on opposite ends
exactly.
of the fence.
Sartaj and Shahid's the whole angle doesn't play out.
That angle is
The
not there only, it's only
Yeah,
like in one transition shot we see that, oh okay, but that's it,
yeah,
that's like just
that's it.
one
Yeah,
passing scene. That was the most interesting bit on the novel, but again it's like whatever. I'm
yeah,
just saying ki, Sacred Game season 1 and season 2, then season 2, then nothing happens after season 2.
yeah.
Jubilee is a mini series. They were talking about making a season 2
I'm
which
glad
won't.
it's a mini series. I'm
Hmm?
very happy it's a mini
I am
series.
also very happy it's a mini
We
series.
don't
Yeah.
do mini series in this country enough. Like एक
Yeah.
सीजन बनाओ बैठ जाओ
बैठ जाओ हाँ.
please.
Seriously. बहुत स्टोरीज है. थोड़ा रिसर्च करो स्टोरीज मिल जाएगा. अगर तुम लोगों को रिसर्च करना पसंद नहीं है, विच आई एम प्रीटी श्योर इज द सेम केस फॉर बो मेनी स्टूडियो एग्जीक्यूटिव्स हु डोंट लाइक टू रीड अदर देन एक्सेल शीट्स, सो इट्स लाइक ठीक है, तो इफ यू डोंट लाइक टू रीड हायर क्रिएटर्स हु डू, allow them
Yeah,
to tell stories.
I think also there's like the same people are essentially working on multiple projects. So Motwani was with Netflix for Sacred Games, then he jumped to Amazon for Jubilee.
Hmm.
Now he's back with Netflix for Black Warrant.
Hmm.
Uh, Same with Sudeep Sharma, right? Patal Lok for Amazon, Kohra for Netflix.
Netflix now, Patal Lok again.
Now back to Patal Lok. It's very limited group of people juggling multiple things.
Yeah, because these people are also not exactly going to take challenges. Na? They all want a known
Hmm.
commodity with which they can basically supplant the burden of taking a challenge.
The
Because if they
known
fail,
commodity से हो गया ना call me what? Call me Bay.
call me Bay. Huh.
I thought I was about to say call me by your bay and I was like, hey, वो क्या है?
वो क्या है? That is like the Ananya Pandification of the Luca Guadagnino in your movie. Somewhere Chris just fell. Chris just fell. Shocked
He's
out
like
of his mind.
तुम लोगों को तो लटकाऊंगा मैं ब्लैक वॉरेंट की तरह.
Yeah. Oh God.
I think we're all done on Black Warrant. It's a great show. It has its problems, but nobody is perfect, to quote Billy Wilder.
Yeah, nobody's perfect, and I also think one of the reasons why the show resonated so high with me as well as Varun is the novelty factor of a story like this
Yeah,
even existing.
very much so.
It doesn't
Definitely.
exist even in American television. It doesn't exist. The fact that the fact that a show will spend an extended amount of time showing Sunil trying to establish a legal aid and
Yeah,
trying to ensure that trying to ensure everything occurs,
yeah,
even utilizing his own personal pragmatism in the process ki,
yeah,
this will also help me, advance
yeah,
myself in front of my parents' eyes or in society's eyes, whatever, at least it's acknowledging that, right? So
yep,
I think if the entire end game of the show is basically rehabilitation of prisoners but trying to show it in an entertaining way, that is in itself a novelty. without just
Absolutely.
resorting itself into comedy, like say. And this is again another show I like, by the way. I'm just saying ki this is a show that exists. Mamla Legal Hai, which is again a
Yeah.
law show, which is also about the ground reality of lawyers, but
Yeah.
it's also delving with it in a much more comedic tone than what Black Warrant does with prison rehabilitation and legal
Yeah.
aid and all that stuff. So yeah, it is a good show. I think if people haven't seen it, I think people should watch it. Again, my
It's bleak. Maybe don't binge watch it. I at least don't recommend binge watching it.
या आई डोंट थिंक यू शुड बिंज वॉच इट लाइक मैं तो पागल हूँ मेरा कोई
आपका
कुछ नहीं
काम
कर
है।
सकता मेरा काम है मेरा कुछ हो भी नहीं सकता इसलिए मैं तो पागल हूँ मैं बिंज ही करता हूँ बट फॉर
Correct.
मेनी पीपल आई डोंट थिंक दे शुड बिंज दिस आई थिंक savor it I think this is one of those shows which can be savored in its own
Savored.
way
Absolutely. Yeah.
and I think it needs to be savored also like one my biggest how do I put this my biggest benchmark on whether a show is working or not is whether my mother likes it my mother
Okay.
while she's a quote unquote used to be a quote unquote cinephile in that regard like when she used to go out like with my dad she would watch movies almost every week so it's like
Right.
there
Proper.
is
Like. Yeah.
proper yeah so she's a cinephile in that regard but now she is a quote unquote normie so if she likes a show like this and binges it throughout
Yeah.
that's a enough of a benchmark for me to recommend it to everybody
To
watch this
everyone.
show
Yeah.
yeah watch that show it will work for you in
Definitely. Yeah.
some way or the other regard yeah I
Just
sincerely
don't
hope it gets a
expect
second
like.
season yeah
Yeah. Just don't expect like lightness in the middle of all this. It's about literal black warrants. So come on.
yeah yeah
And its stabs at lightheartedness are not among its strongest suits either. So
yeah it's it's
it's
okay.
best when it's serious
It's best when he's
because
serious
it
and
is
it goes
about the
into dark
grim
comedy,
reality of stuff. Yeah.
like that sequence where Tomar goes into a meltdown because he finds the guns actually buried under
Yeah.
his guard.
Buried under his garden. Yeah. That is a funny bit though. By then Tomar is a bit of a Looney Tune villain.
Looney Tunes villain. He's like
Yeah.
he loses it. And I'm like, you know what? I can actually buy that. I can actually
Yeah.
buy that you are offended.
Yeah. I spent so much time in this bagicha. It was literally right under my nose.
Yeah, I can understand that you will be offended. I buy that.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
On that note, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in.
to the
And
shortest episode of the shortest Queen
of
is Dead
Queen is
episode.
dead. Since we started having conversations on a more regular basis, yes, this is probably among the shortest. So 1, 2, 3, and khatam.
Khatam.